You're listening to Storage Nerds Podcast, where we unravel the best-kept secret of the real estate investing world, the storage industry. Join the grassroots guru in self-storage, Stacy Rosetti, in insightful discussions about finding, funding, and running these spaces, allowing you to yield the highest returns possible. Get your foot in the door on self-storage and discover how to properly purchase facilities, negotiate with sellers, and close the deal without worries. Start unpacking that investment wisdom with Stacy right now.
Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over stage one, but I'm not going to go into stage one. We're going to get into like one of the most important, I guess it's between stage one and stage two. Yeah, let's do stage two. Okay. So so basically the way that I teach is I teach through stages, the self-storage investing stages. Okay. And, everybody should be able to see that. I'm kind of using thick ink, but let me know if you can't see that, okay? And there's stage one, stage two, stage three, and stage four, okay? This is kind of how it works. All right, and so stage one is, right, the goal of stage one is to get a facility under contract. Okay, so we're not going to go into how to get a storage facility under contract. All right, today I've done many videos on this. I teach this all the time. In fact, I taught last week. I taught virtually driving for storage and how you do that. So I'm not going to get into that today. Stage two is what we call the onboarding phase. Onboarding means after I get the facility under contract, how can I start taking payments? All right, how can I actually start taking payments? So the goal is to take payments. All right, what do I need to do in order to take payments? Now, this stage two right here, this is where you're actually closing on the property, right? Number one, you're getting it under contract in stage one. And then stage two is where you're closing on the property. The goal is to also close. So today, what I'm going to be doing is going over the closing process. All right. So, I mean, you guys tell me in the chat, how many of you have actually closed on a property? And, and if you have not closed on a property, you need to know that closing on a property is not easy. It's not, you don't just get it under contract and then like everything falls into place, right? But I want to talk about the actual closing process because right now we're in the process. All right, just so everybody knows, we have one facility under contract that we're paying $1.4 million for cash. We have another facility, we have three facilities that we're buying as a portfolio, and we're partnering with one of my students. So we're closing on that portfolio. We also have three of our facilities in the Atlanta area that we're selling and trying to close on. And then on top of that, we are wholesaling two other deals, and we're trying to close on those deals as well, too. So for me right now, with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different closings that I'm working on, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And if you are not super detail oriented and you're not, on top of everything, on top of the closing process, then you're just going to it's just going to drag on. It's going to get screwed up. And, and you're gonna be stressed out. All right. It's like closings are not easy. They're super stressful unless you're on top of it. So I kind of want to just talk about the closing process and like everything that we're going through right now. So you guys can get an understanding of like what that process is if you close on a deal. Now put into the chat if you've closed on a property before and you've been through the closing process, what kind of property did you buy? And, were you stressed out or not stressed out? Okay. I've bought like every type of property out there. And I'm going to tell you, every time I close on a property, it's not easy. It's very stressful. Everything always happens at the 11th hour. And, you know, so you being on top of everything, being super detail oriented on knowing what's going to happen, what you should be doing is really going to alleviate a lot of the stress. So that's what I want to talk about today. Okay. All right. And then stage 3 is just so we can finish this out, because this really annoys me that's not finished out. Okay, stage 3 is we bought a storage facility, we closed on it, right? So now what? Stage 3 is like what we call transfer ownership. Right? Okay, transfer ownership. This is where you're like getting everybody into your software. This really kind of this is all about your software and getting your software set up. Okay. And then I've been over that many times over the past 3 years that I've been teaching. All right, many times. And stage 4 is like, okay, now I've got my software set up. Everybody's in the system. I'm finally able to take payments. Now what do I do? Stage 4 is automation and systematizing. So automate and systematize. Okay, the stage 4. Okay, so those are the stages. Now today we're going to be talking about stage 2, and inside stage 2 we have the closing process. That's the goal for today. Okay, good. Okay. Closing process. The closing process of a storage facility, right? But this could really apply to like any piece of property. Okay. Make sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we've got the facility. We've gone through stage 1. We found a facility. We ran the numbers. We negotiated with the owner. You know what we need to do. What we need to do in order to get the facility under contract. All right. Now for the contract. In the contract, we have what's called the due diligence period, right? Okay. Inside your contract, the due diligence period is really the period that you have in order to really look at the deal and everything that has an offer to decide whether or not you want to move forward on the deal. Okay. Now, typically for us, remember, we're closing commercial property. Commercial property takes forever to close, right? It takes a long time. Like everyone says, I can close in 30 days, but like nothing ever closes in 30 days, okay? So when you're negotiating your contract, you want to make sure that you're negotiating your due diligence period. All right, because this is very important, because this could give you a lot of time, enough time to look at the property and look at all the financials and look to see if you and talk to lenders and see if you really want to buy this property. So in your due diligence period, you want to make sure that you're asking for a minimum of 30 days. All right. Now, sometimes people will come back, like we talked to an owner in in Louisiana, just like last week, and he was like, look, I'll sell this property to you if you can, I'll sell it for 400 grand if you can close this property in 45 days and you can have a due diligence period of 15 days. This is what he said. All right. And I'm just like, there's no way. There's like no way. Like nobody can move that fast. I mean, you can if you want to stress yourself out, but like, I don't want to be stressed out. Like I got a lot of stuff going on, so I always try to shoot for a 30-day due diligence period. 30-day DD or more. Now, what I tell my virtual assistants, right? So remember that we have what's called turnkey acquisitions, where you can hire my virtual assistants to find properties for you, right? So I have 10 virtual assistants that do nothing but call owners and talk to owners, okay? And this is how we do it. And this is how we do it for all of our students. Is if it's $1 million or less, we're asking for a 30-day due diligence period. Okay. If it's over $1 million, we're asking for 60 days due diligence. right? If it happens to be like, $2, $3, $4 million, and you can ask for even 90 days of due. So bigger projects are always asking for more due diligence. Okay, like the bigger the project. But I mean, typically all of us here, we're buying like $2 or $3, $1 or $2 million deals, maybe a $3 million deal. Push for as much due diligence as you want, right? As you think you need. All right, the longer the better. And also, if you're wholesaling a storage facility, so if you're interested in wholesaling, there's a whole section in the course about wholesaling. And I just taught this to my mastermind, last Tuesday. But wholesale, when you're wholesaling something, you're the middle person between the buyer and the seller, right? And so you want to have as much due diligence and much time for closing as you possibly can get. So if you say, look, I'm going to be wholesaling this deal, I need a minimum of 60 days to 90 days to go out and find a buyer, right? And have them be able to have their own due diligence time. Right. So you want to make sure that if you're going to wholesale deals, you're asking for as much due diligence as you possibly can. And just be honest. Be honest with like the person that you're talking to. Say, look, like I'm not really going to be the person buying this. And one of my partners is going to buy it. And so I'm the acquisitions person that finds the deals, and they're going to need some time. So this is why we're asking for time to do our due diligence. You can just be, a lot of people understand this concept, and if they don't understand the concept, they're probably even more open to saying yes or no. Really, I hear pushback on due diligence when it's like another investor, when they're like, no, like I know you can get this done in like 30 days, like I've done it before or something. A lot of times it's like really experienced investors and like real estate people, they're the ones that are pushing shorter due diligence, shorter closing times, and realtors too. They'll do that. But like if you're talking to an owner that like doesn't buy a lot of property all the time, like they're going to be okay with doing a longer due diligence period. So my personal point of view is ask for as long of a due diligence as you can without pushing it to where you're going to just piss somebody off and lose the deal, right? So typically I said at $1 million or less, we're at a 30-day due diligence. Or if it's over $1 million, we're at 60 days. If it gets up to like $3 million, $4 million, and I ask for even more time, right? But typically 30 to 60 days is a good amount of time for you to look at everything, right? And so let's see. So another thing is for your due diligence, you want to make sure that you're on your contract, you're asking for everything that you need, right? So you're going to need, if you can get it, we just list everything out on our contract is what we do. We list everything that we could possibly think of that we're going to need. We just list it out. And then the owners will come back and tell you, I can provide that or I can't provide that. So for instance, we're closing on one in Florida. And the owner was just like, no, I can't provide you like any of this stuff. I don't have that, So then we just took it out of the contract, just whatever they negotiate with is what, it's all negotiations. So you want to ask for tax returns. This is another thing too, okay, is that if it's a mismanaged facility and they can't provide like the P&L and the balance sheet, they should be able to provide tax returns. So a severely mismanaged facility is where they're not providing anything. They're not providing tax returns or a P&L and a balance sheet, okay? If they can't provide any of those, then this is considered like severely mismanaged, and most likely you're either going to have to get it owner financed or you're going to have to pay cash for it. Okay, a bank is not going to finance anything that you don't get this from. If they can only provide one or the other, then typically the banks can work with that. If they can provide, like for me, like I don't want to provide my tax returns when I'm selling my properties because like I have a ridiculous amount of property on my tax returns. Okay, so I basically am providing like 3 years of P&L and balance sheets. So 3 years. And this one is also 3 years, right? Sometimes they'll say 2 years, sometimes they'll say 3 years. They definitely don't just want 1 year. They want 2 to 3 years. We push for 3 years, and it's either and or, okay, for that. Depending on what type of, it's an income producing property and they want to sell it at the top of the market, they should be able to provide 3 years of tax returns and 3 years of P&L and balance sheet. They don't want to sell at the top of the market, then they should be able to provide 3 years of each one of these, one or the other. Okay, and then you want to get this due diligence stuff, you want to get this within the first couple of days of closing on the contract. So you want to, or putting it under contract, is you say, you can also write in your contract and you can say, due diligence doesn't start until I have all these documents in place. Or you could say due diligence starts, after day, 7 of the contract. And once we get the documents in or something, you just write that in. Okay. And, so you could do that, or you don't have to do that. We don't put that in, because typically people are giving us, this stuff pretty quickly, but a lot of people want to put that in. So you can put that in if you want to. So then also, so P&L, balance sheet, tax, everybody always wants that. Rent roll. Rent roll is like really rent roll. So for instance, the facility that we have under contract in Florida that I pitched out, the lady didn't want to provide any tax returns, no P&L, no balance sheet. All she wants to provide is rent roll. And the rent roll is handwritten. She wrote it out. Like, I think she put it on a spreadsheet or she wrote it out, but like, she doesn't have anything. She doesn't have any software or anything, right? So like on all of like the first 10 facilities that I bought, I never got any of this. The only thing I got was like a handwritten rent roll. Okay, of this, so now if you have a software, they can just print this out. So the New York one that we're selling right now, the owner did not want to provide his P&L in his balance sheet, but he did go into ESS and he just pulled out his rent roll. He pulled out his occupancy. He pulled out his unit sizes. He also sent us his facility map. He also sent us his management summary. So your software can, if you have software or you're talking to the owner that has software, it can provide this. And the management summary is kind of just like overall, here's the snapshot of how the facility is doing. Okay. And then they can go in and just print out all this stuff. Okay. So rent roll, occupancy, unit sizes, facility map, management. So this is all software. If they have it, if they don't have it, like software, then you really just want to push for like some sort of a rent roll. And the unit sizes, because what you want to do during your due diligence period is you want to be verifying the total square footage that they're telling you that they have. And the only way to verify that is to really look at their total unit sizes and to add it all up and look at what they have in their system or have them write it out. And then you go there and look and see if that's correct or not. Right. But so my point is that with storage investing and storage facilities, understanding and knowing your unit size and your total square footage, right, is like super important. Because if it's off at all by any amount of square footage or unit size, then essentially your analysis is not correct. The analysis is based off unit size and total square footage. So during your due diligence periods, one of the things that you're going to be doing is really verifying if the numbers that the owner tells you are true. And when we talk to the owner, like they'll tell us like, okay, I've got 25,000 square feet and I got 200 doors. And they'll say, and then I'm making, $180,000. Okay. And so we'll ask the owner, are you going to be able to prove that? How are you going to be able to prove those numbers to us? Are you going to have your tax return, your P&L, your balance sheet, your rent roll, your occupancy, unit sizes, facility? Are you going to be able to give me all this? So this is the list of what you're going to put onto the contract. But at the same time, when you talk to the owner, you're also going to be asking them, like, how are you going to be able to prove this? Like, I'm going to take your word for it right now. I'm going to run deal analysis. I could be done with deal analysis in just a day or two and send it to you. But the truth is like, if we get this under contract, I'm going to need proof of what you're telling me. So I just want to make sure that you can prove that. Okay. And then also you're going to want to get like proof of like how much land is involved into the deal, right? So obviously we're going to be able to go to Regrid to get that, which is free. Regrid or Crexy, whichever one you want to do. If you want to do Crexy, let me know and I'll introduce you to Grant so you can get the Stacy discount. Regrid is free. Okay, Crexy is way better, but you can get some stuff out of Regrid. Now, you want to get the proof of like the property report card and how much land is on that piece of property and how many lots. I'm going to tell you, half of the facilities I bought are on 2 lots or 3 lots, or there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And there's like, maybe I've had one that took us 6 months. There was title issues on the lot because the lots were not in the correct name. When we went to go look up the lots, it was not in the right name. So we had to go back and figure all that out. So you want to be looking at the land, the size of the land, and who the ownership of the land is. How many lots does it take for this storage facility to be a storage facility? And is the storage facility like encompassing on any of the lots around it? And if so, how does that work out? So for instance, one of the facilities that we're buying right now, like one building was kind of sticking out into the church right next to it. And so we had to go to the church and we had to figure all that out, figure the land out, the lot out, and make sure that we redrew the survey and the lines and stuff like that. So this is something that's going to happen during due diligence, during your closing period, right? Trying to figure all that out. So looking at your land and your lots and the title, right? Who's on title? Is it the correct name and stuff like this? Okay, so that's the land portion. And then also on top of that, you want to have a survey of the property. Now, a lot of times we could just get the survey from the owner, but if you don't have a survey, then you need to get one. And I saw a question about, the survey in the phase 1. Surveys could take, up to a month to get done. So like, if you're sure you're going to be buying this thing, then you need to work on getting a survey done. I have not gotten a survey on all my properties. Like, when it's defined super clear or whatever, then like we don't get a survey. But if we need to get a survey, we'll get a survey. It costs a couple $1,000s and takes a couple weeks. Right now, during COVID, it was taking forever, but now it's back to normal. So it's going to take, cost a couple $1,000 and take a couple weeks. Okay. So you want to get your survey done, and then you want to know about any easements. Easements. This is another thing. Okay. A lot of storage facilities have easements. Maybe like the building is behind all the other buildings that are on the main road, and then you just have like this long road shooting to the back to get your facility. Or something like this, or you have an easement. Like we have a student that bought a facility and there's an easement going through the owner in front of him that owns a car wash, right? And so you want to make sure that you have all these easements and you're looking at all those and making sure that your property is your property. And do you have an easement with somebody else? The property that we just closed on in Tennessee, there's 2 different easements. One easement is to the owner because the owner has their house on the property and they have like an easement that kind of goes through it to get to. They can also come the back way to get into it, but they can come through the property, the storage facility, to get to it. And then another easement is the utility easement. So there's a utility, there's like electrical lines that kind of catty corner right on like a little corner space of it. And so there's an easement on the survey for that, right? So easements can be utility easements. They could be from other properties, from a company, whatever it is. So you really want to understand how many easements there are and if there are any at all. Okay, so you'll get that from the survey. Okay, and I saw somebody asked about the phase 1. Okay, so now we're getting into who we need to be talking to. All right. Okay, so if you're buying a mismanaged facility, right, you're not going to be talking to a lender. Like a severely mismanaged facility is not going to fund this, right? If it's not producing what it should be producing, or you're paying more than what it's worth, then most likely you're not going to have a lender. All right, lenders really come in with income producing properties, especially right now. Lenders are being ultra conservative about what they're doing. So lender really kind of falls under, so I'm talking about bank. Let me just change this to bank. We just do traditional lender, banks. Okay, so we don't get confused. Bank lender. Okay, so a bank lender is really most of the time going to fall under income producing properties. Every once in a while, you'll find a bank lender that's a local bank lender that will be open to lending to your little tiny facility in your little area because they need the business. And you can prove to them and show them that, yeah, it sucks now, but I'm going to raise rents and it's going to be worth a lot of money in the next 2 years. And so, like, I have students doing this all the time. They go to a local lender and they'll convince the local lender to give them the money because the local lender wants that business so much, right? So every once in a while, you'll get a bank lender under mismanaged facilities. But most of the time, you're going to get like a private lender, right? Or you're going to pay cash. Or you're going to get some sort of creative deal structure, right? So owner financed or whatever. Okay. And then in income producing properties, you could do these two. You could do all this. You could also do here, but typically you're doing bank lending. Okay. The bank lender is the one that's going to require a phase one, maybe. Okay, we just closed on a facility. It was an SBA projected base loan, and they did not require a phase one. All right, but you know, some lenders may require a phase one. You want to make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to get this done. This also takes several weeks up to a month because you know, all these companies that do phase ones are totally booked out, right? And so, yeah, so give yourself plenty of time for the phase one. Give yourself plenty of time for a survey if you need to get a survey done. All right. And also, they're going to require an appraisal. All right, so you want to give yourself time to get the appraisal done as well, too, because that also takes a couple of weeks. Now, you may be able to do all this simultaneously, but maybe not, you know, so that is why it's so important if you're going to get bank financing that you're giving yourself a long closing date to close. This typically won't happen all within the due diligence period a lot of the times, but it will happen within the closing period. Another thing that I didn't point out on the contract that I want to make sure I point out on the contract is you want to give yourself a financing contingency. The financing contingency is like allowing yourself to go out there and talk to lenders and find money for your deal. And you can give yourself, I typically give myself 72 days is what I do. Okay, 72 days. So we're getting it under contract. We're closing in 30 to 60 days, depending on the deal. We're closing in 60 to 90 days, depending on the deal, sometimes up to 120 days. Our due diligence is 30 to 60 days, and our closing period is going to be either 60 to 120 days, depending on how we're getting the financing. But you want to make sure that you add this financing contingency to your contract to allow you to get out there and look for lenders, or, you know, have your, you know, buyer or seller looking for lenders, or I'm looking for money. Okay. So, like for a mismanaged facility that I'm going to be getting a private lender, cash, or owner finance to, it's going to be like, we're going to be closing 60 to 90 days. 60 to 90 days closing. Okay. So that's typical for us. Now, you know, because a lot of times, even if you're getting owner financed, you know, you're only going to have to come up with so much money down payment and stuff like this. So you can typically close 60 to 90 days for a mismanaged facility. Okay. Banks are going to be anywhere. They always say they can close in 60 days. And you guys tell me, but I've never seen anything closing in 60 days. But it would take anywhere from 60 to 120 days typically 90 to 120 days. It's taking a long time to close deals. And so you want to make sure that when you're talking to your buyer or seller, whoever you're working with on your property, that you're letting them know that like banks are taking forever to close. Like, this is why I'm asking for so much time. You know, if I could pay cash, I could just close in, you know, the next couple of weeks, we run title and be done. But I have to go through a bank, and they're the ones that take forever. It's not me. I got to do a phase one. I got to get an appraisal. I got to get the survey. They're going to require a lot of stuff that just has to get done, especially nowadays. Whereas with the mismanaged facilities, you know, you could just get out there if you have a private lender, or you can ask lenders. You know, you could get a couple of people partner together and buy the deal. You know, together and, you know, stuff like that. So it doesn't take long to do this. So this is kind of where we're at. And then also remember that I pointed out that, you know, if it's $1 million or more, right? If it's $1 million or more, I'm asking typically for longer due diligence, longer close time, even if I'm getting owner financed. Because it takes a long time to raise. Like, I mean, I had to raise like $1.4 million for this deal I'm closing, and it ain't easy to raise $1.4 million. Maybe for y'all it is, but for me it's not. I was begging everybody for money, and that just takes time. Okay, so I give myself enough time to raise the money if I have to do this. I give myself enough time. All right. And then for bigger deals, now, if I wanted to go out and buy a $200,000-$300,000 facility, I mean, I could get that done easily. Somebody could just give me a couple $100,000 in the next month or two, right? But give yourself time to raise the money. And if it's your very first deal and you're like, oh my God, I got to buy something for $400,000 and I can only come up with $50,000 and it's a mismanaged facility, then you're going to have to give yourself time to, you know, find private lenders, find partners. I'll put partner here too, just so you can do. Okay, private lender or partner. Give yourself time to do this. Okay. And so then on top of that, so now we're still going down, you know, mismanaged facilities and income. Mismanaged facilities and income producing. Okay. So now it's really about communication. Right. So as soon as you put the facility under contract, it's the same process. Let me just delete this. I don't want to confuse you, but it's communication is what I want to talk about. Okay. So communication. If it's a mismanaged facility or income producing property, it's the same process. And the process is, as soon as you close on a facility, you need to send the contract to attorney or title company, right? So that they can run title, because running title takes for commercial property 3 to 4 weeks minimum. Okay. And so you want to send this immediate call, introduce yourself to the attorney or title company. Sometimes the buyer or the seller picks. Like, you don't always get the choice of what you want to do. You know, I try to push my attorney that closes everything with me and just kind of work, you know, just knows me and knows what I do. But sometimes, like, they don't want to. They want to use their own attorney or their own title company. So, and if I'm closing in a different state, obviously I can't use my one attorney that I use all the time. So I got to get out there and find one. So a lot of times the seller or the buyer will just suggest something to me. But we'll send the contract over, introduce ourselves, you know, to the attorney and the title company, send the contract over and ask them to run title. And this will take 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, run title. It's when I say run title, that means that, like, the title company or the attorney is just making sure that there's no issues on the title. That's honestly, it's just another way for people to make money in this industry, right? But you want to make sure that if however old your facility is or your property is, you want to make sure that title is clear. There's no issues coming up with, like, who owned what, when, where, why, what years, whatever, right? So that's what it is. And you will end up paying for title insurance. Okay. Title. Yeah, here it is. Title insurance. Insurance, not insuree. Insurance. This will cost like, maybe less than $1,000 typically for like, $1 million or less. It's less than $1,000. But you need to pay for this because this protects you and it will protect your money person, right? That's putting the money in. All right. So that's title insurance. When you're talking to a lender, like a private lender, you say, look, I'm going to put you on the title insurance. So you're protected. I'm going to put you on my hazard insurance. So you're protected. So this is one thing that you could tell them. It's like, you'll be on the title insurance. Okay, so send the contract to the attorney on the title, run the title 3 to 4 weeks, and get title insurance. All right, that's step 1. And then step 2 is, the attorney is going to ask you to fill out like this kind of application. Fill out application. It's not application actually. Let me change that. It's not application. It's like in seller and buyer info. If you're the seller or the buyer, seller, buyer, info. Sometimes they have this online. Sometimes they just send you over like a PDF. There's like a form that you're going to fill out. It's like, okay, tell us the information about the property. We need to know like who's buying, who's selling, is there a mortgage on it? Like all kinds of stuff, like all kinds of questions. It's very basic information, but they'll have you fill this out so they have this information. Okay. I think a lot of people are going electronic on that, but some people are old school. Some of you get to fill it out. It's like super annoying to fill this thing out. Okay. Let's see what else. And then, all right, so you have the attorney, the players in the closing process, right? It's the attorney, title company, sometimes both. It's the buyer and the seller, or buyers and sellers, right? It's more than one. And then also it's the lender. These are like the players in the closing process, the lender, right? Could be the bank, could be the private money lender, could be the partner, whatever it is. Okay. Now, obviously working with the attorney and the title company, you're just kind of going with the flow and asking, doing what they ask. The buyer and the seller, this is where it's like, okay, am I partnering? Do I have to have an operating agreement? Okay, if you have an operating agreement, then another attorney has to get in and have to write the operating agreement. So I'm partnering with one of my students on a deal right now. And so we created the company together. So we created the company. And then we have the attorney, right, creating the operating agreement for us. Because the attorney that's closing, the closing attorney, let's just do this up. The closing attorney is going to ask for the operating agreement of the company that is buying the property. So you have to have the operating agreement, but the only way you can have an operating agreement is if the company is actually created. So we created a company and then we got the attorney to create the operating agreement. Whew, I'm already exhausted just talking about this stuff. Are y'all exhausted? Okay. If it's the lender, right? If it's the lender, like let's say it's the bank lender. Right? You're going to have to do, remember, you're going to have to do your phase 1 survey. What else? Appraisal. Plus a whole bunch of other BS. Honestly, working with lenders, it's like not fun at all. I don't know how anybody can even do that job. It's like so much back and forth and taking care of stuff and looking at everything. Woof. Man, I commend all those lenders, all those loan officers out there. That's a lot of work. All right, but you have to do everything that they're asking for, and they ask for like a ridiculous amount of stuff. And it depends on actually what type of loan you're getting. Is it conventional, right? Is it an SBA loan, right? Is it a projected based loan? Depending on what type of loan, it'll give you the different types of like paperwork and everything you fill out. We did an SBA projected based loan. I had to sign 200 pages of documents, and they had a checklist a mile long of everything that we had to give them in order to close the deal. It was ridiculous. In fact, I'll never do that again. But if you do anything with SBA or you do a projected base loan, you just have to know that you're like, you got a lot of stuff to be doing. You got to be on top of it. You have to be on top of it, right? They want to know budgets. They want to know like, they want to have like a proposal opportunity. I don't know what it's called. Management. They definitely want a management proposal. They want to know your value add schedule. Value add schedule. I mean, it's just like the list goes on and on and on. Insurance. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Okay, so while you're doing all this, in the meantime, during your closing process, you have to have insurance. This is hazard insurance. Hazard insurance, and you have to name the name lender beneficiary. And you have to pay up front. Typically, you can just pay 1 month, but the thing with insurance companies that really irks me is that, like, if you don't pay in full, they finance it, and the financing is like 20% plus. All right, so be prepared to pay in full, otherwise you're going to get 20% put on top of that thing. All right, so just know you have to come out of pocket for that. Okay. What else is during the closing process that we're working on? Oh, yeah. And then also during the closing process, right, we're going down all the while that you're closing on this deal and trying to communicate with all these different players on everything that you're doing, right? You're staying on top of all of this. At the same time, you're still trying to onboard your facility, all right? And the onboarding process is getting your software set up. So make sure that you're talking to your software companies and you're getting demos, right? Because the onboarding process for the software companies could take a month or 6 weeks, at least 1 month, to onboard your facility. So all the while that you're communicating with everybody, you're getting your insurance, you're in the process of onboarding your software so that when you close, you'll be able to take payments. Because remember, your goal for stage 2 is not to close the property. Your goal is to take payments once you close the property, right? Stage 2, take payments. You don't want to close on the property and then be like, oh crap, now I got to go get my software set up. It's another month down the road, right? And then then you're sitting here trying to figure out payments and you're having it on a spreadsheet, and who knows, it could be like horrible, right? So you want to get your software set up all the while that you're working with the closing attorney and title company to close your deal. All right, and every state is different. Closing attorney or title company, or sometimes both. Like in New York, like we're having to have both. Let's see what else. Let's see. And then also, while you're onboarding your facility, you have to decide, are you going to have a call center answering your phones? Or are you going to have a boots on the ground person? And if you are, then you need to start interviewing and looking for these people. Right? You got to start looking for these people, so that if you don't want to be the person that's truly managing your facility, you're going to need these 2 people. So during your onboarding stage, you're looking for them so that they can help you, especially when you close on that facility. The first couple of weeks that you close on the facility, if you don't have these 2 people, you're literally running around like a crazy person trying to chase tenants, get them to sign the contract. This is another thing too. This contract that I'm talking about is the tenant contract. The tenant contract is the contract that you have to get the tenants to sign, and you have to get their credit card information. So overall, like I said, stage 2's goals is to take payments. But the only way that you can take payments when you close and move on to stage 3, which is transferring your ownership over, is if you follow this step-by-step process that I just wrote down. This is like amazing step-by-step process here. All right. You gotta you gotta do all this stuff here. See, we're at stage 2, onboarding, take goal and take payments. You got to figure out your contract and make sure your contract states exactly what your due diligence, your closing period, and your financing contingency is. You got to make sure on your contract that you have all of this stuff there, letting them know that you need this stuff because this is what you're going to need in order to do your due diligence, right? You're also going to be finding money. This is the money part. In your stage 2 is money, right? You got to find the money to close the deal. So depending on how you're going to fund the deal is how you're going to set up your, set up your contract and set everything up, right? And let's see what else, and know how long it's going to take you to close. And then you're going to be talking to the attorney, talking to the title company, getting title insurance, talking to your lender, getting everything that they need, talking to your partner if you need to, getting the operating in the company set up, and the bank, get all the information that you need from the lenders if you have that. Get your hazard insurance, right, set up as well too. So getting quotes for this, you need to get a couple of quotes, right, for this. And this ain't easy. This takes forever to get quotes. I mean, it takes weeks to get quotes from an insurance company. Okay. And then you have to get your software set up, do your demos and get all that set up, onboard your software, get your contract so you can onboard it into your software, and then also get ready to take payments so that you can start calling your new tenants and putting them into the system. And if you need help, you also need a call center and a boots on the ground person. And that I am doing this process right now for the one that I'm partnering with the student on, the one that I'm buying personally. I'm also selling the 3 of my facilities in Atlanta and helping and working on this closing process. When you're selling your deal, you're doing all this stuff right here. I'm not buying it, so I don't have to go get software set up, but I'm doing all of this right here for all of the properties that we're selling. And this right here, this is a lot of work, a lot of communication, and you have to stay on top of this. Otherwise, what happens is you have to push the closing out, and then the seller gets pissed. All right, if you're not on top of it, and then you have to put more due diligence money down, earnest money down, and then it just and the bank is like, oh, I need 10 more days, 15 more days, and you have to go back, and then you're just pissing everybody off. So you have to stay on top of this. Okay. So this is the process that I'm going through right now with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different transactions. It's chaos. It's fun chaos for sure. I just kind of wanted to go through that. Any questions, any thoughts? I see somebody says, you need tax returns, rent roll, balance sheet if you're only wholesaling it. Yes. If you are wholesaling your property, everything I told you is exactly what you need to be doing. All right. Except for you're the middle person and you're you're the communication between the buyer and seller, making sure that they're staying on top of all this. You are the one that is doing all this work and managing it. So it's just as much work for the wholesaler. Now, remember, again, I'm telling you that you cannot learn everything about investing in self-storage in 45 minutes. You have to come to the Wednesdays. It's free to listen to me. But so it's going to take you a couple months to get the whole picture. All right. And if you want to get the whole picture now, you can buy the course. Everything is just in one place. You can watch it all. Everything I just said is in the course. All right. And then you could buy the deal analyzer so you could run the numbers, put offers in. And this is the triad. And make sure you join the Facebook group, which is Super Simple Self-Storage, the Facebook group. Okay. If you need coaching, storagenerds.com. And everything that I just said, you can find at stacyrosetti.com. Okay. All right. And don't forget about my fund. If you want to be a passive investor, if everything I told you is giving you like, the sweats under the armpits and stuff, just be a passive investor. Then hop on and listen to my fund. And you go to stacyrosetti.com/fund, and you can just be a passive investor in storage. Let me handle it. FUND, fund. Okay. Okay. All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storage Nerds. Hope this informative conversation inspired you to go out there and jump into this highly profitable business venture that people rarely talk about. Get more tips on storage space investing at www.stacyrosetti.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rating. Together, let's build that thriving passive income one storage space at a time. Until next time.